All right, we are going to look at our last parent function for this section, which is y squared equals x. And so the first thing we want to see is notice that the y is not really by itself. It's being squared. So the first thing we want to do is get the y by itself. So to do that, we are going to take the square root of each side. Now remember, when we write that square root symbol, we are always going to get two answers, plus or minus. So this is similar to our square root parent graph, but it is plus or minus the square root. So it is an additional layer to it, which we will see coming up. If we're going to build the graphing equation or the general equation, again, it works the same way. It would look very similar to the graphing equation for the radical. I'm going to put the a in front. Now it's going to be plus or minus a. It's not a plus or minus because, again, we're always multiplying the a. So it'll be plus or minus a. I have my square root. Remember, the x and the h are always together, so x minus h underneath that radical. And then the plus k is back there lonely by himself, but he is positive attitude again. So our general equation or graphing equation is y equals plus or minus a square root of x minus h and plus k on the outside. Since this is a square root problem, we are going to use our perfect squares, so 0, 1, 4, and 9. If I plug the square root of 0 in here, square root of 0 is 0, and plus or minus 0 is still 0 no matter what. When I plug 1 in, the square root of 1 is 1, but I have plus or minus in there. So remember, that means we really have two answers. We have one, or 2 points, one positive one and one negative one. If I plug 4 in, square root of 4 is 2, but again, we have that plus or minus in front. So again, that's really 2 points. And then when I plug 9 in, square root of 9 is 3. And again, I have the plus or minus in front. So as we go to graph this, our first point would be 0, 0. I then have one positive one. I have one plus or minus 1. So one positive 1. And again, that also means one negative 1. So I have 2 points for that. I then have 4 positive 3. 4 positive 2 and 4 negative 2. So again, it's 4 plus or minus 2. And the last one's 9 plus or minus 3. So I'd have 9 positive 3 and then 9 negative 3. And if you connect these, you should notice that we have a sideways parabola, which we call a sleeping parabola because it's on its side. It's taking a nap. So we call this a sleeping parabola. All right, go ahead and do the key points here. So your x-intercept is 0, 0. Your y-intercept is 0, 0. Your domain is going to be touching 0. So it'll be 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than infinity. And again, the way we're writing that out with interval notation is the bracket, meaning it equals 0. That's everything greater than 0 all the way to infinity. The range is going to go down to negative infinity and all the way up to positive infinity. So all real numbers are negative infinity to infinity. Is the graph a function? No, it is not a function. It fails the vertical line test. So if I drew a vertical line right here, vertical line, it's failing that. The vertical line is crossing at 2 spots. Now, the question is, how do I type this into my calculator? So, actually, we'll come back to that. Last part says, write the equation for a sleeping parabola that is shifted 3 units to the left and 2 units down. So, I'd have y equals 3 units to the left would mean my h is equal to negative 3. 2 units down means my k is negative 2. And then I can just plug them into my graphing equation right here. So I would have plus or minus. The a, it doesn't say anything about flip, stretch, or compress. So I'm just going to leave it as 1, really. So plus or minus the square root of x, and it's minus a negative 3. So it would be plus 3, and then my k is negative 2. All right, now how do you type this into your calculator? So your calculator cannot graph non-functions. It can only graph functions. So we have to trick your calculator a little bit. And so if we were going to graph just the parent graph, so if we were just going to graph y equals plus or minus the square root of x, what we'd have to do is under y1 in our graphing calculator, or the first line of Desmos, you would type y1 equals the positive square root of x, and then you'd have to do y2 equals the negative square root of x. And if you're doing it on Desmos, line 1, square root of x, line 2, negative square root of x. And so that's how you do it. You just do it two separate lines, one for the positive part and one for the negative part.